What's up, fam? Welcome to day 13 of our Purpose Pursuit. I hope you are enjoying it. I'm Stashu again, bringing you this content. I hope you are enjoying it, and I hope you are being blessed. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the shares and every of the feedback that you're giving us. I am loving it. And so, getting right into day 13. In day 12 yesterday, we talked about developing our friendship with God. And today in day 13, we're talking about worship that pleases God. We know that friendship with God, making God our best friend requires that we worship Him, we honor Him. But then it's most important to understand that there is a posture of worship, there is a culture of worship, there is worship that pleases God, just like there is worship that does not please God. For those of you who read the Bible, you remember the story of Cain and Abel. The Bible says that Abel offered an offering that was pleasing to God, while Cain, even though he came to worship, his offering was not pleasing. My hope for you and I is that our worship is pleasing to God at all times. So the most important thing that we're talking here is that God desires worship. God desires worship. He created us for Himself, for His good pleasure. That is the first purpose. And when we're talking about this purpose pursuit, the first thing is that we were made for God's pleasure, and we were made to worship Him. And so worship, He desires it. He desires that we love Him and worship Him with all our hearts, all our souls, and all our mind and all our strength. So He desires all of us, not just some of us, but all of us. This is very important, because sometimes when we're doing something, and maybe we're singing a song, or we're doing something, and we're like, oh, we are worshiping, but then our minds are thinking about something else. God desires everything: body, soul, spirit. Not some of our time, all of our time. We've talked about prioritization, how we have to prioritize God, and so even in our worship, we have to be wholly devoted to our worship. The next point about worship that pleases God is that worship must be accurate and authentic. Worship being accurate and authentic. There is a story in the Bible where Jesus met this woman at the well, and He said the Father seeks for those who will worship Him in spirit and in truth. So our worship must be authentic, it must be accurate. We cannot say something and we don't mean it. So our lips have to say what our hearts believe. And so really, worship is really what has to come from the heart, and it has to be true. Your words cannot just be like, oh God, you're good, and then in your heart you don't really believe that He's good. In your heart you don't really, you're disgruntled, you don't feel like He's good, you feel like He's been unfair, life has been unfair. If you have such an attitude or such a posture in worship, you are going to realize that your worship will not be pleasing to God. So it has to be genuine, it has to be heartfelt, it doesn't have to be mechanical, it has to be true, accurate, and authentic. The third thing is to avoid distractions and self-centeredness. When we're worshiping, it's that time where we set our minds on God and not on ourselves, our problems, how we feel, having a pity party or whatever it is that just takes our attention off of God and puts on ourselves. And I know that it's not easy to do that, but my recommendation is really just getting to that place where maybe even in prayer, you really offload. Remember, we talked about friendship with God has to be sincere, has to be true. There has to be that honesty. And when you come before Him to really worship Him, there has to be that honesty, that truth factor in our worship. So that means that, yes, Lord, I have problems, I have challenges, I have pain, and my body hurts, there's all of this. However, you are good. That is truth. That is authenticity. That is taking the attention off of ourselves and putting on God. I know that, I'm tired, my body is worn out, I have this going on, I have that going on, but I just found the time to be here, to come here to say thank you, to say I love you, to say I appreciate you. Another aspect of worship that is pleasing to God is that our worship has to be true to who we are, right? Personal expression of worship, it has to be true to who we are. Some people worship by lifting up their hands, some people worship by kneeling, some people worship by studying, some people worship on the keys, some on the guitar, some on the drums. We have different ways by which we connect with God, and so you have to find what's unique to you. However, by whatever means is unique to you, you have to give it all. You have to be totally focused and honest and really tuned into Him. So our worship has to be authentic and unique to us. Some people just like to be quiet, some people like to be expressive. Whatever it is, as long as your mind is on Him, you're appreciative, you're connecting, and you are being authentic to yourself, He is going to be pleased with your worship. The next aspect is that there has to be thoughtfulness involved in our worship. Again, speaking about an earlier point where our minds have to be involved in our worship. So there has to be thought to it. You can think about the names of God. You can think about, I was praying, spending time, and my kid wasn't feeling well, and I was like, God, you are the healer. So you can think about who God is. Maybe you need provision, and you're worshiping Him in that moment. Again, taking your mind off of your challenges, yourself, and putting on Him, and like, God, I thank you because you are my provider, you're my healer, you're my source, you are my friend. Whoever He is to you, you can really have those expressions. And remember, it doesn't just have to be when everyone is gathered again in a church. You could be having your walk, and then you just tuning your mind to Him. That's thoughtfulness. You could be washing the dishes, you could be at your desk, you could be taking care of the kids or whatever it is, but having that thoughtfulness to it, you can really hone in on the various names of God. There are so many of them, but I just gave you a few based on whatever situation you find yourself in, or wherever you are in your life. You can just focus on who He is to you. Again, worship, the last point is that worship has to be practical. Again, not just about words, but all your heart, your soul, your might, your strength. And so you have to really give Him your best. That's what I believe in being practical. You have to give God your best effort, your best strength. Not just, I know a lot of people wake up in the morning, they do, they go to the gym, or they do their fitness, their running, whatever it is that, when you wake up, you're rested, you give that, your best to whatever it is that you think is most valuable to you. And so we have to think about that. What do I give God do I give God my best? So I have to make sure that I'm putting my effort, my will, my time, my strength, being intentional, so that I am giving God my best. So in summary, I want you to think about worship that pleases God. What areas have you, in this conversation, do you think that you have to tweak, or you have to improve on, you have to take note of, you have to work on, to make sure that your worship, you're giving God your best worship? And the question to consider per our author is, which is more pleasing to God right now, my public worship or my private worship? And what will I do about it? It's a lot of us, we go to church, and yes, when we are in the groups, we can connect, we can, lift up holy hands, praise, worship, we can be focused. But then when we come to the house, or when we are alone in our privacy, it's like we forget about God. Or there are some people who, they are very private, they can worship and everything, but then in public they're like, oh no, they don't want to really connect with God, or they feel awkward. Is a good word. So in which area do I need, the author is asking us, do I need to focus on and make sure that I improve in my worship? So I hope that this blessed you. Today we're talking about worship that pleases God, and I want you to remember the story of Abel and Cain. One person's offering was pleasing and one person's offering was not pleasing. Both of them worshipped, both of them offered an offering. So make sure that as you're thinking about this, you're thinking about how your worship can be pleasing to God. Well, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow on day 14 of our Purpose Pursuit. Bye bye.